This is Bebe Song, host of SC Nova. It's Saturday morning and I'm sitting on top of the USS Midway. In a couple of hours, this whole aircraft carrier and the whole water underneath will be brimming with excitement from the America's Cup. But in this moment of tranquility before all the actions, I'm enjoying an excitement of my own. I'm about to have my first interview with a philanthropist from one of the most iconic families in America, someone who is carrying on the family's generations of philanthropic tradition, making outstanding contributions in areas from art to music, from education to the environment. Mr. David Rockefeller, I don't usually start my day like this, so I have to thank you and Dan and your staff for this very special opportunity.
You're so welcome. Good to be here.
Good to
have good weather too.
I know. Well, one can use so many terms to define you, and I would. There are so many things that I would be privileged to chat with you about: the national parks, Alaska, and Museum of Modern Art, all of these treasures of America. But given the occasion today, we'll focus on one aspect of your identity and your related work. So as a sailor and a conservationist, a former member of the Pew Oceans Commission,
right.
You've had the sea as a big part of your life in more ways than one. So now we are in the middle of the bay, San Diego Bay, and with the ocean right over there looking at it, I would love to have you tell us in your own words, what are you here for today at this particular event, and more broadly, what you're trying to do through Sailors for the Sea, this organization that you co-founded a few years ago.
Great. Well, thanks so much. Great to be here with you. Of course, this is the lead up to the America's Cup. It's one of the sites in the 2-year lead up to the real America's Cup in San Francisco that will occur in the fall of 2013. And I'm privileged to be here because of my relationship to a conservation organization, Sailors for the Sea, that is an official sustainability partner with the America's Cup. Right at the top of the sails of the main sail, you'll see the cup to the left and Sailors for the Sea to the right, really symbolizing our close relationship with a sporting event that's gone on for nearly 150 years that used to be just about winning, and now it's also still about winning, but it's about protecting the very ocean, the surface on which these boats have raced all these years.
More than a sport.
More than a sport, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we talk more about your organization, I'm just curious, how did you get into sailing, and do you remember the very first time you sailed?
Well, I don't specifically, but I know I was young, and I think I was probably on the coast of Maine, the state of Maine, as far away from here in the U.S. as you can get, except for parts of Alaska, Hawaii. I was probably, I'm guessing, 6. I was probably with my parents who loved to sail. And in those days, they sailed a small black sloop called Jack Tar. That's the British name for a sailor. And it had no head, it had no running water, it had no stove. And they actually used to cruise on it. And then along came a powerboat with a captain on it, and they would sleep on that at night. So probably that's what happened, my first sailing event.
Mm-hmm. And then when was the first time that you realized that the sea is not only for fun, for sailing, for recreation? This has to be something that you have to focus your conservation work for as well.
Well, you know, I think it was in the 90s. So now, when I was a boy, it was in the 40s. So it took me nearly 50 years as a sailor and even as a conservationist to realize how many big issues there were with ocean health. And I think that's why we founded Sailors for the Sea, because I think most sailors don't know what's happening under the keel.
So with Sailors for the Sea, is it more of a self-policing organization to make sure that the sailors follow a set of practice guidelines, or are you trying to do something beyond that, more making the sailors as a community as champions for something broader?
Exactly, you stated it very well. It's the second. I mean, of course we want sailors to behave well vis-a-vis the environment, but I think they'll naturally do that if they understand what the issues are. Don't throw plastic in, don't dump human waste in harbors, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Don't use toxic paints or cleansing materials. Sailors for the Sea has a program called Clean Regattas that does set out these rules for racing regattas that yacht clubs and other organizations will establish. So yes, it's about that, but it's mainly about encouraging sailors now all over the world to learn about oceans and to become active protectors of them. Stewards, we call it.
So at Pew Oceans Commission, you produced a comprehensive report on U.S. marine health.
Yes.
What became of that? Did it lead to policy, government actions, or anything?
Well, our dream hasn't happened yet. What we thought was that there should be what they call omnibus federal legislation that set up a new agency, probably NOAA as they call it, more independent from commerce, that would really oversee ocean health in U.S. waters 200 miles out from shore. That hasn't happened yet. Of course, it's a very difficult legislative environment to get anything done, no less that. But what really has happened is that I think the philanthropic and NGO world has woken up to how important ocean conservation is, equally with the land and of course connected to it.
Well, it certainly makes sense with a combination of your passion for sailing and your knowledge and your work that's in the ocean conservation area. But I would think in your position, I mean, you're really in the position of pursuing any cause, and I would, given your dedication to the welfare of humanity, you would pick on the ones that really have the most important impact. So what made you decide that this, in the grand scheme of things, this really has important impact?
I think it's very important as much as possible to do things that you love. You just talked about your loving tango, you know, and so I bet you're really good at it. And I'm a pretty good sailor because I love it, and I've done it for a long time, cruising and racing. So first of all, I think it's important to connect to things that you connect to, that the heart is connected to, not only the mind.
Sure.
And that was a pretty easy choice for me. I loved my national park work, but it was through that I learned some national parks are islands and coastal areas, and I learned about the ocean issues through that, and really saw that it's also a kind of open playing field. You know, if you're trying to choose to do something, and it's whether it's big or small, and you want to make a difference, it's good if not everybody else is crowding into that space. And only 1% or 2% possibly now of U.S. philanthropic dollars go to ocean conservation. The other 98 to the land. Well, you know, the Earth, what we call the Earth, which could have been called oceans, is 71% water surface.
Right.
Right?
Water is really the foundation of life.
It's the foundation of life, it's key. But the real thing is the ocean is a big supply of the world's food. And we have fished out 90% of the big fish in the last 50 years of the 20th century from the oceans. I mean, it was an amazing feat, if you want to think of it that way, that humans were so clever that they could do that. But it was horrific from the point of view of planning and future food for the world. So Sailors for the Sea have several programs, and it seems Clean Regattas is more on the sailors, the sailing community in their regattas. You have a set of best practice and guidelines. Some of them, they seem to be fairly, in terms of sustainability, common sense ones. Recycle and renewable energy, you're trying to use renewable energy, etc. But there are also the ones that if you're not a sailor, you wouldn't think of. For example, your oil spill, your cleaning the bottom, cleaning. If you're cleaning the bottom to keep the boat fast,
Right.
not using toxics for that purpose. Yeah.
Right, okay. So with America's Cup, it's a preeminent sailing event, regatta that you're partnering with.
Exactly.
And they are a good case of clean regatta practice.
Biggest in the world.
Yeah.
And Sailors for the Sea started, its first program was clean regattas.
Yeah.
And now it's been elevated in the 3.5 years since our CEO, Dan Pingaro, has been with us. It's been elevated up to the America's Cup.
Which is fantastic. You also have the rainy day kits, which is more education for the younger generation.
That's right. That's
and
right.
Dan is also telling me he's very excited about this new program, more oriented towards industry, the shipbuilding industry.
Well, that's you're describing it very well. Rainy day kits are developed in collaboration with eminent marine science institutions that help us develop a curricular unit that then can be, that we put up on our website, downloaded free by teachers and used not only by sailing teachers, although that would work, but by teachers in classrooms and at summer camps and so forth. So that's a second program. The third one, actually its name is Certified Sea Friendly, and that's a program in development. It doesn't, it doesn't fully exist at the moment. It's a very important dream, and yes, it's about the entire marine industry and trying to do for it what the LEADS program did for sustainable construction of housing and commercial buildings.
Well, just one last question. So you talked about your first sailing experience. You talked about from other places I've heard about the wonders that you've experienced as a conservationist.
Yes.
What was the most recent experience that you felt this sense of wonder? And looking ahead, what do you hope to see again?
I began in 1981. Every 5 or 10 years, sort of on birthday periods, I'm a summer child, to do expeditions, mainly to the northern waters, which really interest me. And the most recent one was this last summer, and I organized an expedition for about 130 people, 5 boats, from Oslo to Helsinki. So we sailed across the Baltic, and it was beautiful. And if you say one image of that, it was an overnight sail from Gotland, which is the biggest island in the sort of the middle of the Baltic, toward Stockholm. And because it was so close to the summer solstice and we were 60 degrees latitude north, there was no dark, but there was darker, and a great sunset that started just to the left of us as we went across, and a red-pink glow went across the bow all night, and the sun rose on the right of us. It was beautiful.
All right, so you're excited to sail today. Who are you sailing with?
So I'm sailing with the French.
Oh, okay.
Yes, with a French team, and I'm very excited. I think they may be in the lead of the series so far, so that means we have something to lose but something to gain.
You'll be in the back of the boat. Does that make you anxious? Don't you want to be in the front?
Yeah, it may make me anxious if there's a lot of wind, because I've not been on these boats. But yes, I'd love to be steering. That's what I love to do in my racing. I'm mainly a helmsman. When I was younger, I did everything else too.
Thank you very much,
Sure.
Mr. Rockefeller.
Oh,
have a
thanks.
great day.
Absolutely. I'll be with you.